Good morning to those of you in North America. My name is Jess Swart. I am the founder of J Swart Behavior Consulting, and I'm here to go live today to answer any questions you might have about your neurodiverse child and their behaviors or their skill acquisition or their capacity to be independent, things like that. So I'm here opening the door to questions or anyone who might want to chime in and ask something or try to troubleshoot a situation, because this is an open platform. I will be giving general recommendations. Of course, if I don't know you or your child, I am not able to give specific treatment-based recommendations because I haven't got all the information I need from you. So I'm a board certified behavior analyst and developmental educator. I'm a behavior support practitioner in Australia, and I'm based in Canada but providing services across the globe. So today, if we don't have anyone coming on, I'm going to touch on some kind of foundational information about behaviors. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to understand behaviors and what's going on. And I also go through a lot of this in my Understanding Autism Behaviors course. So this is my kind of foundational course where you actually get a lot of information to help understand why your child is engaging in certain inappropriate or undesired behaviors, and then what to do about it, right? It is a fairly surface level. I do give still lots of practical tips and recommendations and things for you to try, but it's not a really in-depth course. But this is a pretty affordable course to purchase, and it's fairly fast. It's approximately 2 hours worth of content, so it's something that you can quickly get through, quickly apply some things, and quickly get some outcomes. So that's my Understanding Autism Behaviors, a Parent Guide. Okay. So I'm just going to wait for a little bit to see if one jumps on. Excellent. Okay. Well, in 30 seconds to a minute, I'm going to jump into some information for you. If you are in Australia and you're watching this or you're seeing this, I hope that you're awake for a reason. It's very early in the morning in Australia, most places. So, but maybe your autistic child has woken you up. Children with autism having sleep issues is a very common occurrence, and it can be worked on, it can be supported, it can be fixed. I do provide coaching and support for parents for sleep training, and sleep training that doesn't just involve what we call controlled crying, right? When we just let kids cry it out. There's lots and lots of research that has been done to show that this is not the only way, and this way doesn't always work. It actually really depends on the reason that your child is having difficulty sleeping, and sometimes the controlled crying can be effective, but other times children just get more and more heightened, especially our kids with autism who really do struggle with regulating their emotions after a period of time, and regulating themselves in general. So just know that if you hear about behavior analysis or ABA or behavior therapy, that there are lots of other options to work on sleep and lots of other skills that don't involve just this really hard line of writing a behavior out. Also keep in mind that this field of behavior analysis and ABA has evolved a lot over the years. There's been research, there's been a lot of changes, and like in any field of science, we study something, we learn about it, we change it as it goes, right? So the foundation of science is that we have a continually evolving repertoire of research and evidence, and that what we do changes as we get more information about what works or what doesn't work. That's not to say that you have to just stick to the science. There are for sure tools and resources out there that aren't science-based but might just work for your child, right? And that's okay. The important thing to keep in mind is that it's not harmful. So keep in mind the time that it takes to implement an intervention, to work on a skill. Our early intervention is so important for our children, and if we are spending lots of time on something that doesn't have evidence, that's important to keep in mind. It's not to say you shouldn't do it, but keep in mind that this is time for your child that might be also beneficial being used in other ways. The important thing here is that it doesn't do harm, right? Whatever you are implementing, that it's not harmful to your child, and it's something that also you can afford, that it's not going to be harmful to you as a family and for you to be able to support your child in the long run. So there's a few different decisions there you have to make, but I got a bit off track. So my point is sleep training. There are lots of ways to work on sleep. There are the protocol that I implement is a really great one that slowly fades yourself in or fades yourself out depending on the situation. It doesn't just require your child to like cry it out. You can use it for co-sleeping. So there are lots of ways we can do this in a really gentle, kind way for children. All right. Let me just check here that I haven't got anyone waiting for an answer to their question. There we go. Okay. Alright, I am going to jump into things soon. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we can get a better understanding of our behaviours, our child's behaviour, and our own, because what we do with our children applies to ourselves as well. Behaviour analysis has studied the behaviour of humans and other animals in general, so this really does apply to all of us. Of course, in a lot of ways we are different to other animals in the world in regards to our capacity to think, to process information, to connect with others, to have that emotional responding. So we don't want to just say we're like every other animal, but some of the foundational behavioral principles actually apply to us and animals in the animal kingdom as well. All right. So before I jump into some education about how to understand our children's behaviours, I want to share with you that My principles are really based on empowering parents with tools so that you can help your child reach your full potential. Children with autism are often underestimated. They have incredible brains and incredible ideas, and we want our children to be contributors to our society, to make our society better, to innovate, right? To share their thoughts and feelings. So, but in order to do that, our children have to have a certain level of capacity, right? They need to be able to communicate. They need to be able to interact to a certain extent. And we want them to be able to understand, right? So our children don't always learn, our children with autism and ADHD and other neurodiverse experiences don't always learn in the same way as as neurotypical, I guess. So for us to expect our children to just learn like everyone else does is not realistic. There are lots of evidence-based ways that we can teach our children. Um, the study of learning and skill acquisition has been studied a lot in the field of behavior analysis, and we have lots of fantastic tools to use that we can embed within fun, interactive, play-based teaching settings. So my intention really is to share this message with the world and ensure that our children can be empowered and to learn in the way that helps them learn, and also to reach their full potential, right? We always have such great potential. I don't know if we ever reach our full potential in general, right? We can learn throughout our entire life. So we just want to make sure our children have that capacity to learn, right? So in behavior analysis, we talk about teaching children how to learn. So learning how to learn is an important skill, and our children don't always pick that up naturally or through the general kind of motions of life and schooling and education. I also want to mention that it's really important for you to be an advocate for your child. And if you don't feel like the educational situation is supportive of your child, then speak up. Your child has a right to an education, and your child has a right to an education that accepts their way of communication, their way of socialization, their way of learning. And while, yes, some schools lack the resources, that isn't an excuse for your child to not get what they need. Unfortunately, I do hear schools saying that. I know it's potentially a reality for them, but I don't feel like it is a reason for children to not attend that school or to be denied. In saying that, I want to share a little bit about a balance here. At least this is my perspective. I feel that yes, we want to support the learning needs of our children and their communication styles and socialization. I also feel that it's important for our children to learn how our society functions, to learn how we interact and how we socialize with each other. That doesn't mean we have to teach our children to mask all the time, but it might mean that we do directly teach our children how to understand certain elements of other individuals, how to understand facial expression, how to understand tone of voice, how to understand body language and what that means. So I think we really truly want to still be interacting human beings and learn how we all interact. And so learning how people engage and interact and socialize and how to have a conversation is also really important. While we are learning how neurodiverse individuals interact, we also need to learn how other non-neurodiverse individuals interact. So that's my point. I also want to mention one last point about masking. In my opinion, I feel like we all mask at some point in time. I for sure mask when I am online with you right now. I am showing you a different side of myself. when I'm spending time with my friends and family, I might mask in certain ways, or typically I would say that with my friends, I am not masking at all. In other situations, although there might be certain social situations, I do mask. Um, I for sure would be masking when I have a professional meeting. If I am speaking to other professionals in the room, I am presenting myself in a different way. Um, but I want to acknowledge here that for me, when am masking in certain situations and I'm not perhaps showing my true self, it's not as high effort. Yes, it is physically and mentally draining for me, but it is not potentially to the same extent that other neurodiverse individuals might feel. So I want to appreciate that for some of our neurodiverse population, they are masking 100%, almost 100% of the time. And they might find that the only time they're not masking is when they're home with their family, or when they're home on their own in their room, when they're online with their friends. So I think it's important for us to realize that in a way, masking is part of how we adjust and adapt to different environments and different contexts and people, that it does take energy, that this might be a reason as to why your child is burnt out after a day of school or daycare or preschool, and that it might impact your child's behaviours ultimately, right? If your child has been masking all day at school, then they're going to be much more reactive when they come home. All right, let's move on. I'm just going to check my comments again here. Let's see. Okay. So if you are around and you jump on, please ask me a question, provide a comment. We can. Yes, cool. Yeah, we can have some open discussion here. If you're watching this on the replay, you can message me directly through Facebook Messenger. You can also contact me via my email. You are welcome to contact me in a way that works for you. You can leave a voice message, or type something. But yeah, please get in contact, and I can share with you the various resources I provide to families who aren't in my direct vicinity, where I'm not providing direct face-to-face services. So what I do provide face-to-face, I can provide online, and I coach parents through implementing certain strategies in their home to help reduce difficult behaviours and increase skills. This is also a great combination within my online course programs, and so the first one I recommend you access is Understanding Autism Behaviour, the Parent Roadmap. So this goes through the foundations of understanding why behaviour occurs and provides some practical strategies you can implement straight away. Then if you need a more deep dive, more specific, more individualized program for support, I provide my Busting Behaviours Protocol, which is once again an online, an at your own pace course. It's a 12-module course, and it is quite extensive. So you could probably spend a good few months going through it. But included in that are some live online calls like today, where you can jump in and ask a specific question about where you're up to in the modules, or some troubleshooting you need help with. So the Busting Behaviours Protocol has the pre-recorded information, the live weekly calls, plus done for you resources. So the visuals you need, the social stories you need to teach the 4 basic skills that are often a reason for most of our children's behaviours of concern. And those skills are coping with no, coping with changes, waiting, and I just forgot the other one. Following instructions, so cooperation skills. So there's those 4 skill areas that I really go through with you in depth on how to implement and apply to your child. Okay, let's talk about the ABCs of behavior today. So this is a way for you to help to understand why your child's behaviors are happening. If you feel like, he just had a meltdown out of nowhere, or she hit her brother for no reason, or I have no clue why they're getting upset all the time about this. If you are asking those kind of questions, then this tool can help you understand what might be happening around your child's behavior. So ABCs, it's a good acronym to remember, ABC. A stands for antecedent, a bit of a technical term. It refers to the event that occurs immediately before a behavior. Okay, so A is the antecedent. B is the behavior. So what behavior are you seeing? And remember, a behavior for us at the moment, as an external observer of our children's behaviors, we're going to look at what we can see or hear and measure. So what did my child do? What did they say? What sound did I hear? What action did they make? And can I measure that? If I can measure that, then that's a behavior. We do have internal behaviors, but these are events that occur internally and other people can't observe them, right? Other people can't measure them. So it's very hard for us to presume what our children might be feeling or thinking based on our observation, because we can't clearly observe those internal events. We for sure can teach our children to observe and understand themselves. That's why we teach a lot of emotional awareness, self-regulation, a lot of that internal awareness of what feelings are happening in different parts of our body to cue us as to how we might be feeling. What are our thoughts, right? What are our helpful thoughts and unhelpful thoughts? So we do a lot of work around that. But when our children are young, and especially when our children are nonverbal and have a lower level of skills at this point in time, it's really hard to determine what they're thinking and feeling. So I want you to think about, when you see a behavior, you're describing it, or you're telling yourself, okay, I see them dropping to the ground and screaming, or I see them pulling someone else's hair, right? I can measure how many times someone pulls another person's hair, or they're trying to bite, or they are biting. If the behavior isn't happening, I wouldn't say trying to, I would say they're opening their mouth and moving towards a person, right? Because maybe they weren't going to bite, maybe they're going to kiss them, who knows, right? I have to be careful that I'm not making assumptions as to what might happen when I'm observing behaviors of concern. All right, so that's the B. The C is consequence. Now, this isn't the consequence that you might initially think of. When I say consequence, do you think of a punishment? Do you think of putting your child in timeout? Do you think of removing a toy, or removing screen time? They don't get screen time because they hit. Or are you thinking of a consequence in the context of, not being allowed to do something that your child wanted to do, or being sent to their bedroom? Okay, these are for sure consequences, but they're not all the types of consequences that we experience. A consequence in terms of behavior is anything that happens after the behavior. Okay, so a consequence could also be positive. Okay, it could also be very natural, a naturally occurring consequence. So if I walk up to the house of my friend and I knock on the door and they are home, The consequence of me knocking on the door is that my friend opens the door and I get to see them. Okay, so that's what's happened after my behavior. The consequence of knocking on the door is the door opens by someone. The consequence of me eating food is that I feel satisfied, or I get an enjoyable taste in my mouth, or my hunger is disappears, right? Is suppressed. So I have the behavior of eating, and there are these different consequences that occur after my eating. When we're looking at our children's behaviors, if our children are engaging in, say, a meltdown at the store, and we're super embarrassed and really frustrated with the situation and we don't know what to do, we may give a consequence of leaving the store. So our children could also learn in this situation, I have a meltdown in the store and I leave. It might be that the consequence is positive, that I eat all my dinner and I get dessert, right? So there's a behavior and a consequence there. It could also be that I pull my sister's hair and she runs away, so therefore I get all the toys to play with. Okay, so there's a behavior, pulling hair. The consequence is I get all the toys to myself. Okay, so I want you to think about one of your child's behaviors and think about the ABCs. And I do go through this with my Understanding Autism Behaviors, the Parent Roadmap course, and you get a worksheet to go through to write on with that. And I go in some more detailed explanation throughout. But when we think about the antecedent, which is what comes before the behavior, this is something that we can change. So we can change the antecedent, and this means we're going to be putting in proactive or preventative strategies to support the reduction of the likelihood that the behavior will happen in the first place. And then we can also change the consequence. So by changing the consequence, we change the outcome of the behavior. So therefore, the child doesn't get the outcome of the behavior, the outcome they want from the behavior, right? And ultimately, that consequence can reinforce the behavior, so it can increase the frequency of the behavior in the future, or it can reduce the behavior and it can reduce the frequency of the behavior occurring in the future. So that's what that consequence is doing. It's increasing or decreasing the occurrence of the behavior as well. There are times, lots of times, when parents say, or teachers say, the behavior just happened out of the blue, right? There was no trigger. There was nothing that happened before. There was, I have no clue why. Like, maybe someone just looked at them and they exploded. Okay, but that could still be an antecedent, right? It could be another child looks at your child and they scream. Okay, so the look could have been the antecedent or that trigger. Also, what can happen is there can be the absence of something. And I like to think of this in the context of attention. And this is very common, where we think there is nothing that was an antecedent, but it's the absence of attention that led to the behavior. So if you think about a situation in your home where your child is playing, or they're on their own in their room, or nothing much is happening, and then all of a sudden they throw a toy and it hits the wall. And what do? You go up and say, what happened? No throwing, please. Let's play with our toys gently. That's not very nice. Let's play with our toys properly. Come on, let's pack away. Or what are we going to do? Let's play this game together. And you try to redirect, and you maybe try to give some information that that's not the right thing to do. But what has your child just got from that? A pause. Have a think about it. They just got lots of your attention, lots of your undivided attention. Maybe an extra thing like a game. Now mum or dad comes and plays a game with me. So they just got a lot of individualized, focused attention. But there wasn't anything that seemingly triggered the behavior. But what it was the absence of attention. So sometimes the absence of something can be the antecedent to a behavior, and then therefore there was a consequence to that. So let's think about this example. The antecedent is that there is no attention, or the child is playing on their own without any interaction from someone. The behavior is they threw a toy, and the consequence is they got the attention from you, right? So their behavior was effective in this situation, and the consequence reinforced the behavior. So that child is going to, because they got the outcome, right? Being reinforced just means that you kind of get the outcome you want, so therefore it's going to increase in the future. So by this sequence of events, we can see that in the future, that child is going to throw a toy when they want their parents' attention. Right? Now, this might not be fully consciously thought through with our children, right? They're not thinking, oh, hang on, if I throw that toy, my parent is going to come over and give attention to me. It's very instinctual, right? It's not a conscious thought process, and it's something that just forms through the environmental factors and what happens in our environment naturally, right? And this probably happens very naturally at school, and it happens very naturally, of course, when our children are in dangerous situations. If your child throws and smashes a light, well, you're going to have to provide attention to that, right? So I'm not saying don't provide attention when it's important, because it is important to keep our children safe. But I just want you to be aware of what's occurring here, and then we will get more into what to do about that later on. So keep in mind really what's happening in the environment when you're thinking about that antecedent. What is happening or not happening in the environment? And what is the consequence? So keep in mind, is the consequence or the response that's happening, is that giving your child the outcome they wanted? And if it is, then we need to reshuffle things, and we need to rethink what we're doing, how we're responding, what we're doing proactively. So this is a really important starting point to understand why your child is engaging in certain behaviors. Now, quickly, I'm going to give you one tool to implement if this situation is relevant to you. So if you find that when you're not giving your child attention, that they engage in a behavior that's less appropriate, and then you end up giving them attention, maybe because it's dangerous or just because it's very instinctual to you, then we're going to flip this upside down. So this means that your child is trying to get your attention in the way that they know, okay? One preventative strategy you can use is at times when you know your child is more likely to engage in a behavior to get your attention, you're going to set a timer on your phone. Every time that timer goes off, you're going to go to your child and you're going to engage with them in a positive way. Or you're going to give them something that they like, or you're going to play a quick little game with them, or you're going to sing a quick little song with them. Something that they like, something that's positive, right? Or you're just going to go and give them a heap of tickles, or you're going to give them some deep precious squishes that they like. So this provides your child with the attention that they might be seeking in a proactive way. Okay, instead of being reactive, we're being proactive. And you're doing this on a schedule. So you're doing this regularly and consistently. So your child your child's need to engage in an inappropriate behavior to get your attention is reduced. Now, you're possibly asking, how long, what time do I set my timer for? Now, this is really individual, and this is where taking some data at the beginning will help. When you're just observing your child and taking some data, you're going to see how long are they occupied on their own before they seem to engage in a behavior to potentially get your attention. And then you're going to look at what that average is. Maybe you take data over a couple days for that, and you'll determine, oh, this is happening like every 15 minutes. My child is doing something on average to get my attention. So then you're going to set your timer for 12 minutes. So you're going to set it for a little bit less than what they're usually engaging in a behavior for. And this means you're going to catch the function, or you're going to provide them with what they want before the behavior. Then over time, you might need to build your child's skills in other areas. Often I find we're building play skills. We're building focus and attention on tasks. We're building that sequence of going from one toy to another, to another, to another to stay occupied. So just know this is not a one strategy is going to fix it all, because there are often various skills and responses we're giving and proactive strategies that need to be put together to really have a solid long-term outcome. Okay, but in saying that, sometimes just introducing the first step can make a big difference. All right, so I'm going to leave you there. I want to wish you all the best. Remember, you can contact me in the messenger, you can contact me on Instagram, you can email me. My information is all in my bio on my Facebook page, and I would love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what's working, what's not working. You know, what's the hardest time of day for you? Often that morning time or evening time is really hard. So what's the hardest time of day for you? And maybe next time I can talk a bit about some of those strategies we can use in the mornings and evenings to help that go smoothly. So if you didn't catch what I already went through, I invite you to watch my replay. I invite you to inquire if you're interested about the Understanding Autism Behaviours, the Parent Roadmap mini course, and I also have my Busting Behaviours Protocol, which is my bigger program that you can inquire about, and we can talk about whether that's a good fit for you. I'm here every 2 weeks, so I will see you in another 2 weeks live at 9:30 Mountain Standard Time in North America. And thank you for listening, and I look forward to supporting you and your child to reach their full potential. Okay, remember, your child is incredible. They have an amazing brain. They are probably listening to everything you're saying, and it's going to come out later on in their life potentially. So keep in mind what you're saying around your child. Make sure it's positive. Make sure anything that you need to talk about that is, less positive or not supportive, then you have that outside of earshot of them. Because our children are listening, the information is going in, their brains are working well, they are incredible individuals, and you can help them reach their full potential. Okay, I'm going to finish there, and I wish you the very best for your day. See you next time.